This an all-out blitz. Real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. I'm your host, of course, Matthew Briggs. And as always, I got my amazing trio, but we are one short. Crenshaw decided to be a diva once again, so he's going to be a little late. But as always, I got my little big brother, Mr. BT.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
And guys, if you listen to the late hits between 6 and 8 in Houston Texans on ESPN 97.5, you know this guy very well. We got Mr. Patrick Creighton. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, fellas. As you can see, I'm still in the ESPN studio. Just ended late hits and now popping on with you guys. Looking to have some fun, man.
Hey, man, we appreciate it. Thank you for taking your time from your busy schedule. You know, the visit with the little guys, you know. So, must appreciate it. Well, guys, let's jump into some NFL news real quick. All right, well, you see it. TJ Hawkinson did extension, kind of the highest paid tight end right now. I'll start with you, Patrick. Was it a smart move, or should they waited? What do you think about it?
Well, yeah, they're paying him. This is what he's making. What, $68 million for 4 years? That is not too shabby for Mr. Hawkinson. And look, the NFL salary cap goes up every year. So as big as a contract may look at any one moment, by the time we get to next year, it's really not that big. And by the time we get 3 years down the road, it's really not that big. So it's a lot of money, and they're putting it up there. And look, he's I would say TJ Hawkinson is probably the next tier of tight end. You know, he's not Travis Kelce, not Mark Andrews, but probably that very next tier. I don't know how big you want to differentiate between that tier and where Hawkinson is, but Hawkinson has developed into, a game-changing type of player. And, Kirk Cousins certainly would enjoy throwing him the football. The biggest reason why they got him is, Cousins likes to throw the football at tight end. And to have that guy and Jefferson, look, they're trying to find ways to get more out of Cousins. They paid him a lot, but if you're an impact player, you're going to get paid a lot. It's strange to see the tight end in that position, but there are some tight ends who are kind of like wide receivers, and that's the kind of player that Hawkinson is. He's a guy who they're going to throw him the ball like he's a receiver. So when you have a guy at that position, at that size, who creates mismatches, you can't cover him with a linebacker, and it's hard to cover him with a safety. A corner can stay with him, but a corner's not really big enough to be more physical than he is. So he creates a mismatch against every team, and there's only a handful of those guys in the league. So they paid him a lot. Is he worth it? Probably. And if you are a tight end who is due for a contract, you love it.
Licking your chops. BT, I get to you. What's up?
Well, I think, Patrick, when he mentioned that he's not Mark Andrews, and here's the thing, he's getting paid more than them. And Travis Kelce seems to be very underpaid. I think, obviously, it did behoove them to give him this contract. I think the interesting thing for Texans fans is how much is Dalton Schultz going to demand when we're ready to pay him next year? Because if he has a year that we're all projecting, which is, around 800 yards, say 7 or 8 TDs, potentially more, he could say, all right, you have to give me at least $12 million, right? Right now he's getting about 7. So at least 12 would be the bottom, and he could ask for 14. I very well think that he could get 14. And believe it or not, 14 is not all that much anymore. if Darren Walsh is getting 17, George Kittle's getting 15, where do you put Schultz in? Because if he goes to free agency, he could probably get more. So for Texas fans, I think that's what my takeaway is. But from everyone else, particularly Kansas City fans, Travis Kelce needs to get a raise.
Well, I find it funny. I've seen a video where I think it was the New Heights with him and his brother. I love that podcast. Besides this one, it's probably my second favorite podcast. But they were talking about Travis Kelce has paid, how much he was getting paid. He's like, man, that's all I'm getting paid. He's like, yeah. He goes, but I'm winning. So, I mean, I like to see that Travis Kelce worries more about winning than getting paid checks. So that's a dying art. Nobody believes that no more. It's all about getting the bottom dollar. So I hope he gets paid, but till then, at least he's winning, right?
Right.
He's winning, and his next contract, he gonna get paid.
Oh, yeah.
So nothing to worry about there. I'm sure he's got some endorsements, and he gets other ways of making money. But when his next contract comes due, there might be a 2 in front of that. So
probably. I mean, he's probably the best ever to play the game at tight end position. So we'll have to see it. Well, going down to Dallas, Trey Lance was kind of surprised everybody. Traded for a 4th-round draft pick. Patrick, I'll kick it off to you again. Did this shock you? I mean, a lot of people were saying that nobody wanted him, and all of a sudden, bam, Trey Lance to the Cowboys. Were you surprised?
I guess what's shocking is a team actually didn't make a secondary mistake in this case, where, look, they overdrafted a guy who hadn't played a lot of football. Remember, Lance played, one game in 2020? He didn't play the COVID season. He had played 1 year the year before, didn't play really in 2020, and they traded up to take him at 2. You played, not FBS football and didn't have a whole lot of playing time. It wasn't a good risk to make this move. He's a guy who got drafted because he's very athletic and he had a big arm. But he never faced the kind of competition and didn't have a lot of starts. And rather than compound their bad decision by saying, hey, you know what? We drafted him at 2. We have to force play him. We have to make him the guy. They realize, you know what? He's not the guy. He's not our guy. He's not going to be our guy. Let's just give him a shot somewhere else, get what we can get, and move on. And I thought it was the right deal for the 49ers. He's never going to be the guy. There is no point in having him. You can't have 2 young quarterbacks on a team. One young quarterback isn't going to learn anything from the other guy. All he was trying to do is take your job and become a distraction. Right. If that guy's never going to play, he's going to gripe. He's going to be unhappy. He's not going to be a good teammate. Give him a shot somewhere else. Made sense for the 49ers to move him. Makes sense for Trey Lance. Hey, you're going to go get another opportunity, another franchise. You're going to get a clean slate. Go work your butt off. Go see what you can get. Makes sense for the Dallas Cowboys. Look, they gave up a 4th-round pick for a guy who was a number 2 overall selection. He has talent. What he has between the ears needs a little work. And now I'm talking about not just maturity, but being able to read defenses, recognize plays, the amount of time that you have, how to be able to make adjustments to the line of scrimmage, how to earn the respect of your teammates, and, of course, how to stay on the darn field. These are all things he needs to work on. And he's going to get a clean slate to do that in Dallas, where, look, do they really want to pay Dak? Because it feels like they want to look at Dak as being not as good a quarterback as he actually is. And why that? And they did the same thing to Tony Romo, right? Mm-hmm. Tony Romo was a really good quarterback who, look, Dez caught it. I would hope the Cowboys lose every game, to be honest with you. I grew up a Giants fan. Dallas could go 0-17. They won too many games. But if we're going to be objective, Dez caught it. They should have won that game. But there were way too many years where Tony Romo got the holy snot beat out of him because while they had really good tackles, they didn't have a whole lot in the middle. Tony got killed. Tony broke. And he was never able to get to that, ultimate championship because, well, he could never stay on the field. Dak has been better than Tony Romo at staying on the field. He's not as accurate a quarterback, but he's a little bit more dynamic and certainly a little tougher. But they haven't given him, necessarily all the same tools. They tried to be very much a run-first team. Last season, they traded away their best wide receiver and replaced him with Noah Brown, who's now on the Texans.
Right.
I mean, like, what was the plan there? They just, okay, we're going to trade Amari Cooper. CD, you're the new number one guy. All right, who's the number two? It didn't make any sense. There was no plan. And that hurt them last year because there were too many times that Dak had to try to force the ball to CeeDee Lamb because, well, there's nobody else available to really do anything. And escaping me, their other receiver, the guy who's always hurt.
Gallup.
Yeah, Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup, yeah, is he talented? Sure. Michael Gallup's never healthy. Mm-mm. He's never healthy. That dude's made out of like very, very thin blown glass. He's never healthy. So, they got Brandon Cooks. I hope Brandon Cooks decides he's going to play this year because he certainly didn't decide to play last year for the Texans. I hope he decides to play this year. And I hope that he does well enough to look like he still got something so that the Cowboys will pay him a lot more money and then he falls off a cliff and then they got to eat the money. So, is that me being petty against Brandon Cooks and being petty against the Cowboys at the same time? You're damn right it is, and I don't care. But that was just the whole thing is just they didn't make the right preparation, and that's how they wound up in that spot. So I'm all for, like I said, I'm all for the Cowboys losing. I'm for Dak Prescott being a better quarterback. I am for Trey Lance getting a shot with the Cowboys. And if they decide they're going to move on from Dak to go to Trey Lance, I'd love that because that's a downgrade. And I'm all for the Cowboys taking a downgrade.
Same. VT, what do you think? What's your thoughts?
I'm only going to give you one word because I really want to get to the Jonathan Taylor stuff before we get to the Texan stuff. So my one word is dumb.
I mean, I have to agree with you on that one. Well, BT, here it is. Jonathan Taylor is on the pup list, not going to be traded after the whole, man, what a good time to be a Texans fan, right? Like all these years we've been the laughing stock, now it's the Colts. So great times. Patrick, I kick it off to you again. What's your thoughts about this whole fiasco of Jonathan Taylor?
On one hand, I'm happy that I don't have to watch Jonathan Taylor run for 160-plus yards on the Texans every game because he's going to miss one of those games. I feel good about that. But what a disaster the Colts are, right? I mean, first, they look at Jonathan Taylor and they go, as good as you think you are, we're not going to pay you. You know why? Guys like you were a dime a dozen. Every year, there's 5 more guys that we can go pull out of the running back, or we can pull a guy off the waiver wire. We can pull a guy out of the 4th round, and they can run just as well as you. Then here come the Miami Dolphins. We'd like to trade him. Fine, we want Jalen Waddle plus. We can't just give him to you. The guy's amazing. He's a great running back. Then why won't you pay him? Like to Jonathan Taylor, they want to tell him he's a bum, but everybody on the team, they're like, oh, no, this guy is gold. You've got to pay us triple his value. It's the dumbest thing. And then to hear Ballard turn and go, well, you don't really need a young quarterback doesn't need a running game. And tell me you didn't laugh your ass off hearing that. A young quarterback doesn't need a running game. It's like, dude, I don't know. Maybe him and Irsay have been hanging out a little bit too much, and that nose candy's been flying like hell. Because every time I rewatch that video of him saying that, all I can think of is like, him and Jim Irsay driving around in a convertible, suitcase full of cash, and they're going to score. Because nothing about that made any sense. You had to be high to make that statement.
Well, especially where he's like, I forget what was the question, but he's like, oh, well, we only won 4 games. That wasn't JT's fault that you only won 4 games. That's your fault, Chris Ballard. Like, you're at fault for that, not JT. JT was hurt last year. So how can he be the blame for 4 games? So that whole interview was nuts, crazy. VT, what about you? I know you have a lot to say about it. So
So the first thing I want to say is that they could obviously afford to do it from a cap space perspective. They have the 6th most cap space in the league right now. They have $19 million. So this is not about cap space. The thing is also is that when the Dolphins and the Packers made offers. They made wild requests. They asked the Dolphins for a first-round pick and Waddle. That is pretty insane. So they had no intention of actually doing him right, which means he requested a trade. You said, okay, go find a partner. We'll try to hash this out. They obviously didn't want to. But now he said, screw you. I'm going to say I'm injured. And so now he's on PUP. He is out for 4 games. Now, here's the thing that is going on amongst the Colts community, because some Colts fans think he's not really injured, that he's quote unquote pretending, just like Jalen Ramsey did, and they're basically saying that that the Colts could, because the relationship is gone so far, that the Colts could literally start to find him, and now that relationship is dead. So the question is, what will happen? Well, I actually think they're going to try to trade him, but they think that they're going to get more value in late October. But I actually think they were probably getting pretty damn good value for the Dolphins, because they think they can win a Super Bowl right now. And so they were trying to give him the most that they can. So will they get more in October? We'll see, because we don't know what's actually going on with his injury history or his injury right now. If it turns out that he's more injured than he's letting on, he's going to get way less value, and that relationship seems like it's destroyed. The other thing to think about now for the Texans is, first of all, we don't have to face them. Jelani Woods is on IR too, so we don't have to face their best running back or their best tight end. That game should be a gimme. Like, even with the O-line issues that we have, that game should be a gimme. I'm projecting the Colts this year to be at 3-14. I feel sorry for Anthony Richards. If you guys watch That's Good Sports, a YouTube channel, Brendan Pena basically said that the Colts have treated their rookie quarterback the worst out of every other team. I mean, the Texans, the Titans, the Panthers, because they are not giving him anything to work with. And I think he's right. And so I honestly think the Colts, I actually like their draft, but I think they're doing such a shit job with AR that we already knew he was a boomer bust type of guy. We may now be pushing on the bust scale right now, because you know what happens in the first year if you get beat really, really, really hard and you're a rookie quarterback, that you could potentially not come back from that when you really have nothing. So I think the Colts are making a huge mistake. They're trying to prove a point by not paying Jonathan Taylor, and it's only screwing AR out of development. And Colts fans are delusional, saying this doesn't matter, but it matters.
Oh, yeah, it matters big time. Chris, about time you show up, man. Always late to the party. Patrick sent us in the private chat. Good thing you showed up. Now at least we have one good-looking man on the screen. Actually broke my screen, so I don't know about that. But Chris, what do you think about the whole situation?
It's a crazy situation. To be honest, I'm just glad that it's not us in the news. You know, right. I'll be happy when he's gone, because he has really, not quite Derrick Henry us, but almost Derrick Henry us every time we play him. But I think they should pay him, though. I mean, good running backs are hard to find. Just like Patrick said, if you don't think he's all that, then, why does teams want to give up so much for him and everything? I don't know what's going on with Ballard over there. And like VT said, I think AR is really, really, really going to get the David Carr syndrome this year. He's going to be really, really bad, and he might not come back. And I'm okay with it. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic. So that's my quick take on that right there.
All right. Well, Patrick, do you have anything to add after hearing what we had to say before we jump to the Texans?
I get the idea of the Colts looking at Anthony Richardson, who, I mean, look, he's built different than other quarterbacks, right? I mean, there's a linebacker playing quarterback. Right. And maybe they look at him and they say, well, a lot of the carries, especially in the red zone and the goal line, those are now going to go to Anthony Richardson, right? Like they'll just use him instead of Jonathan Taylor. They'll play some 11-on-11 football. I mean, you've got the guy, coaching there who basically, turned Jalen Hurts into a superstar with that push play. How many times do you think they're running the push play in Indianapolis this year? Like every damn time they can. I think that you're going to see a lot of that. And Richardson's probably going to have a ton of carries if he can stay healthy for the year. I think Richardson will wind up breaking 1,000 yards probably easier than anybody else ever had from the quarterback position, because I think they got to run him 10, 12 times a game. Minimum. They got to run him a lot.
Kind of like they did in Chicago with Justin Fields.
He's not a great pocket passer. He's got a big arm, and he can throw it hard. But does he have a touch? We don't really know.
Right.
Can he drop it in the bucket? We don't really know. I know we can throw it through a brick wall, but that's not always a throw that you need to make. And sometimes, look, the most important thing for any quarterback in the NFL, even still, is accuracy in the pocket. And that's like the biggest weakness in his game is accuracy in the pocket. I don't think Indy's going to win a lot of games, but I think AR is going to be an exciting player to watch. And he's probably going to be a really nice guy to have as your QB2 in your fantasy league. But I don't think he's going to win a whole lot of games this year. And if they're smart, which, look, we're really not sure if the culture's smart. You think about Cam Newton and how big he was and what an incredible athlete he was. And look, we watched his career get cut short from all the dirty shots to the head that he took, all the gratuitous hits that he took. And, officials were just like, you're 250 pounds. You can take it. If you let Anthony Richardson take all those shots the way that Cam Newton took all those shots, the way that Andrew Luck took all those shots, he's not going to be your 10-year quarterback. He won't be in the league that long. And that'll be a shame because I think he's got a ton of talent. I'd like to see if he could put it all together before he winds up getting broken into a million pieces.
Same. I do like him so.
I just want to add, and I won't take too long here, but think about this is the problem. I discussed this in one of the after shows, but the Colts could very well do so bad that they get Marvin Harrison Jr. And then that's a threat that I'm scared of because they don't have to keep Richardson around forever, right? They have Marvin Harrison Jr. They can get rid of him after 2-3 years and get another quarterback because they have the god at wide receivers. So that does worry me, but I do think that they'll have a pretty crappy season. I can't see them winning more than 3-4 games, really, with the way that they're set up right now, the management and all this other crap. Like, it would be unbelievable to me if they win anything more than 3 or 4 games.
Don't worry, VT. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the new target for Kyler Murray in Arizona.
All right. I love it. All right, guys. Well, let's jump to why we're here. Some Texans.
But is that going to be our pick or Arizona pick, though? For Arizona.
I think their pick. I think Arizona is going to finish dead last. They're going to have the number 1 pick because they're already in tank mode. I don't even think Kyler Murray is going to play this year. I think by the time Kyler is ready to play, they're going to have a 0 in the win column. He's going to say, you know what? I'll see you in September.
Right.
I don't think they are in such tank mode. Who's their starting quarterback? Josh Dobbs? You can't tell me Josh Dobbs just starting quarterback and you think you're going to win 1 game. Yeah, I think Arizona is going to have the number 1 overall pick of their own volition.
So number 1 overall pick, you want to go Caleb Williams?
They got Kyler Murray.
So you want to trade back and let somebody else get that pick, and then you get Marvin Harrison Jr.?
How far you want to trade back? Because Marvin Harrison Jr.
3.
ain't getting past 3.
3.
I got to know who's going to finish 2.
Tampa.
Well,
Tampa Bay.
I don't know. Is Tampa going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. and say bye to maybe Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? Get rid of one of those high-priced receivers, bring in a guy who's a lot cheaper? Wouldn't Tampa want the quarterback? I mean, that quarterback's Baker Mayfield. I feel like they might want the quarterback.
Well, Tampa get Drake May.
Yeah, see. I think Tampa's going to stink this year too, by the way.
I do think Tampa's going to stink, but I think that the question remains they could go vet and get Marvin Harrison Jr., whereas Arizona really has to be secure that they don't have to actually that Tampa won't take Marvin Harrison Jr. I actually think it would be smart for Arizona to take Marvin Harrison Jr. and then trade, for example, if we do, I don't think we are going to do bad, but I'm thinking like they are. If they think that we're going to do bad, trade that one down. But get your stud receiver. You already paid your quarterback to 2027. You already made your bed, sleep with it. Get your kick-ass receiver and go from there. They can't go for a quarterback the 3rd time in a freaking row.
I think I'm not against what VT is saying here because, like I said, they're committed to Kyler Murray. They've committed a ton of money to him. So the only way you trade out of that pick is if somebody gives you like a Rams thing. I'll give you this year's 1, next year's 1, the following year's 1. A couple of 2s. Like, is somebody going to just pay stupid, crazy money? But I'll also say this just for S&Gs, right? How many times have we heard about CJ Stroud? Can't take CJ Stroud, man. He went to Ohio State. Can't take an Ohio State quarterback. Oh, all of a sudden we can take USC quarterbacks. I thought those guys were softer than snow. Now all of a sudden we can take a USC quarterback. That is a little just seems like it's a little change of the narrative. And look, I'm all under the understanding of, look, there's plenty of how many, you can't take an Alabama quarterback. Well, when Tua's not getting his brain scrambled, he looks like a pretty damn good quarterback. You can't take a guy from a school until there's a guy that you can take from that.
Exactly.
CJ Stroud is that guy. Maybe Caleb Williams is that guy. It certainly wasn't Matt Barkley. He looked like the guy. Then he decided to stay in school, and he wasn't that guy. But because, like you said, they're committed to Kyler Murray. If somebody's not giving you the moon, the sun, and the stars, you already got rid of D-Hop. You've kind of stripped the offense down. I think they're going to trade Hollywood Brown before the year is over. You got to have somebody for Murray to throw the ball to. They were a really good offense when Murray could throw the ball to D-Hop. And they're a really bad offense when D-Hop doesn't play. So they have to replace that production. So, you think Marvin Harrison Jr. might be a bad number 1 overall pick? If you think he is receiver God, I'm not risking the opportunity to take him.
Right. I feel you.
All right, well, let's get to it then.
You ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 stick, you can get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride.
Well, the Texans have made a lot of moves because of a lot of stuff happening, so we'll kind of get into that later. But the 53-man roster, Patrick, you're our guest, so I'm going to start with you again. What is your take on this 53-man roster? Was there any surprises, or was there anybody that was cut that didn't?
The only one I was really surprised by was Des King. Des ran with the ones last year. He ran with the ones all offseason, ran with the ones all preseason. I was surprised that Des was essentially a cap casualty. That guy was a starter, and he's a pretty good player. And he showed that he could be a pretty good player. So in a league where you can never have too many corners, I was surprised that he ultimately was let go. He's really the only guy that had the surprise factor to me. I mean, some of the other guys that have now wound up, coming back and onto the practice squad, a lot of times teams will cut guys like that for salary cap purposes. And what I mean by that is if they carry you in through week 1, your salary is guaranteed for the year. But if you're on the practice squad, then they go back and they elevate you. They're paying you that per week until 3 games in, and then your salary guarantees for the year. So they don't have to guarantee those salaries. It's like accounting voodoo. The Patriots do this all the time. So not a surprise that Nick Caserio, who learned this from Bill Belichick, does it here. But it's accounting voodoo of how to not guarantee a contract right away. You can kind of get out of it if you decide you want to. I also don't think that the current 53 is necessarily the 53 we're going to see on Sunday. So I think that there's still moves to be made. I think they might still be tinkering around and looking around. I would not be surprised if they continue to make more moves as we go along. But I was a little surprised, maybe more than a little surprised, that Des King was let go, because they don't have, quote, a replacement for him for the production that he gave. So you're asking guys to step up. First and foremost, you're asking Taft Thomas to step up. That means stay healthy and step up. And then the guys behind him to also step up. So that's the one move that, raised an eyebrow.
Okay. Well, Chris, I'll kick it off to you. What about you? Who was your surprise cut, or who do you think still got cut but didn't?
Same. Des King. I mean, the guy was at the press conference with D'Amico. I thought he was a D'Amico guy. They must have asked him to take a pay cut, and he said, "Nah, I don't want to take no pay cut." That's the only thing I could think of. I wish they would have kept him. I mean, Thomas could have left and could have kept Des King. So that's my surprise cut right there, man. I mean, really, really surprise cut, because I was surprised when we first got the guy. Yeah. So I'm double surprised.
All right, VT.
So I was surprised with Desmond King, obviously, too. The one thing that I don't understand, and Country, I don't think it's because he wouldn't take a pay cut. The first time that he stayed here for his second contract, he actually took a pay cut just so he could stay here. So I don't know if it's because he did get burned a few times in camp. And then obviously in the preseason game, he got burned in Miami, but that was against like Tyreek Hill. But he did get burned in camp. And I don't know if he's just getting a little bit older and they saw that, he can't compete as well as some of these younger guys. We know that, Shaq Griffin had made some plays. He was not doing great in camp in the beginning, but he did make some plays in preseason. I will say, though, that wasn't the only surprise cut for me. Jacob Martin, who I thought was going to make the team as a rotational guy, they tried to send him back to the practice squad. The Colts ended up grabbing him. He was surprising as well. Michael Dieter. Now, we're going to talk about injuries and stuff in a moment, but Michael Dieter, considering we know what happened with Kenyon Green and we know we have a problem at left guard, we saw Dieter play well at left guard. We know that he could potentially be kind of a swing guy, being guard or center too. Plus he can play special teams. So it was weird that they cut him. Now he is on special teams now. He's on the practice squad now, but they haven't brought him back, which I think is weird. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I do think that is interesting in terms of cuts. In terms of who stayed, Brevin Jordan, what? Now, I did say when we talked to Cody M. Davis on this podcast that I think that Brevin Jordan could earn a roster spot just because of injuries, but I didn't also think that they would cut Van Nett. I didn't think they would cut Mason Schreck. I don't necessarily understand this because Brevin Jordan is still injured. Now they think that he's coming back, but the point is, what showed them that he deserves to be here over Schreck or Van Nett? Because he's played in OTAs and he has been good in OTAs, but he hasn't been healthy for training camp. Don't get that at all. I know they've seen him in previous years, but he was a healthy scratch last year for multiple games and he was injured. Boone, that was a weird one. And I think that's Patrick. I think that's exactly the point that you made. Boone was cut and brought back within a matter of 5 minutes. I think the tweets were he was cut and brought back right away. So the real surprising ones, honestly, Desmond King and Dieter, those are the ones that I still question. And Brevin Jordan not being cut is weird.
I can see both sides why Kurtzky is a surprise cut and why he's not. I mean, he did get burnt a lot in coverage, and he's older, but you have nothing but young one rookies and sophomore guys at the linebacker position. So you except Perryman, but still, you still need that veteran role. So I'm kind of surprised they let him go, but I'm not surprised at the same time. But yeah, I gotta agree with you, Dieter, especially knowing what you know now. I don't see why you let him go. But perfect segue. The Texans have been hit with the injury bug. Patrick, I kick it off to you. Our line has been dismantled by injuries. Texans fans are freaking out, saying it's going to be another shit year. What do you think of this whole situation? Will we be okay?
Well, look, week one is not going to be representative of the entire year, right? All these, especially the Kenyon Green and Juice Scruggs, these injuries just happened. So they don't have a whole lot of time to break in a new center, new guard. They're already on their number 2 center. So now you're down to number 3 center. Oh, and you're playing the Ravens on the road. You don't have a lot of time. You got to put 2 new guys in the line, the one position on the entire field where you have to have 5 guys in cohesion. So that's going to be difficult to do for week one. But it's also not going to be representative of what the whole year is going to look like. Now, they've got to figure out how they're going to put this together. You mentioned about Michael Dieter. Well, they brought him on the practice squad, and they'll likely elevate him on game day. And with guys on the practice squad, they're not going to elevate them till game day. It's just the accounting and the financials of it. They're still at practice. They're still getting the reps. It's just that for salary and contract purposes, they'll get elevated on game day. Michael Dieter has had, 966 snaps as a left guard and 546 snaps as a center. So they feel like they can use him there. Is Tytus Howard going to be available to play week one? I don't know. I don't think they know yet, to be honest. That's probably something we'll find out like Wednesday of next week, is whether or not it's likely that Tytus Howard is going to play. Are you going to play Howard at right tackle, which is right now his best position? Or are you going to move him to left guard because you have George Fant, who is a quality tackle on your team and can play right tackle? Do you consider the line with Howard at left guard and Fant at right tackle to be a better option than Dieter at left guard and Howard at right tackle. Maybe. As far as center is concerned, that's a totally different issue because you got your rookie quarterback now using his third different center in 5 weeks. That's nothing good about that. Now, Jimmy Morrissey, who's also back on the practice squad, he's been with the Texans for the last 2 years. He's been a guy who's been on the practice squad. They've elevated him for games. He's played some center with them, 259 snaps, but all with the Texans over the last 2 years. I think Jimmy Morrissey is a guy who could wind up playing some center for them because he's done so the last 2 seasons. And as a guy who's not unfamiliar with all the guys around him. It also, on their line, you've got 3 guys who are really good. Laramie Tunsil is a great left tackle. Tytus Howard is a very underrated, really good right tackle. And Shaq Mason is a damn good guard. You have 3 Pro Bowl level players on your offensive line and Tunsil, who's an all-pro level player. You know, the other 2 guys don't have to be Pro Bowlers. They just can't stink. They can't be turnstiles.
They got to be serviceable, right?
When Kenyon Green was trying to play through his shoulder injury last year, he was a turnstile. Now it turns out he's got a shoulder injury that they've known about since May, but didn't do anything about. That's a whole different conversation we can have about Nick Caserio and WTF was going on there. But I think the decisions that we're going to see them look to make is, are they going to move Howard inside and have Fant at right tackle? Is Dieter going to play left guard? Is Jimmy Morrissey going to play center? Is Kendrick Green going to play center? Kendrick Green, who they got from the Steelers, he played his rookie season, was inactive all of last year. He wasn't a good fit in the scheme they ran in Pittsburgh. Lance Zierlein seems to think he will be a much better fit in the outside zone scheme that they will run in Houston this year versus the power scheme they ran in Pittsburgh. He thinks is a better fit there. I will tell you, when it comes to scouting offensive linemen, if Lance says it, I'll take it as gospel. Certainly knows more than I do about that. So that at least makes me feel good they didn't get a guy who's a total bum, right? They got a guy that they think will actually fit in their system. So could Kendrick Green play center? Could Jimmy Morrissey play center? They have answers in-house. We just don't know how they're going to set them up yet.
Also, Josh Jones, I think, was a very underrated pickup. A former Houston Cougar, got him from Arizona. He can play everywhere, tackle, guard, center. So if Fant can't do it, I agree with you. You put Josh Jones there in guard, or you put him at tackle and put Howard at guard. I mean, like you can use that. He's like a Swiss Army knife for the line as well. So
I think they feel Jones is a better tackle than guard. But yeah, George Fant's a good player, but he's also had a lot of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So if George Fant, for whatever reason, is unable to go, or you got to sub him out, can you play Josh Jones at that spot? Well, Josh Jones has had a pretty good amount of experience at left tackle for a young player, some experience at right tackle, some experience at right guard. You don't need him to play right guard. You got Shaq Mason there. But if he can play right tackle because Fant can't, and that allows you to kick Howard inside if you need to do that, it's another option for them to have. So he does give them another layer of versatility as a guy who could be the swing tackle if Fant has to be a starter.
I mean, you're right. A lot of answers. We just got to figure out what the right one is. BT, I'll kick off to you first because I know you got a lot to say.
Yeah. I'll start off with the good and then I'll go to the crazy. So the good thing is we made some pickups recently that are good. Like Kendrick Green, I do like that pick or that signing. Nick Broker, he was the second most sought after person on the waiver wire. The Cardinals, the Titans, and the Giants wanted him. So, we are going after dudes that other players want. There was some discussion in the, on Texans Twitter about is Nick just going after dudes that no one else wants? So on that part, I'm good. Patrick, you brought this up, and this is something that I've been talking about all day, bothering me at work. I can't even concentrate. Why the fuck would you wait when you know what's going on in May? You wait 4+ months to make a move? Now, I understand that you know this in May, so this didn't convince you in the draft decision. So you picked up Peterson as a backup. That didn't influence your decisions that you knew this in May. Now you know in May, and you don't make any other moves that could back up Kenyon Green. You wait until fucking September. What is Nick Caserio doing, and why is he getting $6 million a year? I mean, the things that I have a problem with is not simply the injuries, right? My issue is that this is a problem that's been going on now for 3 years. Let's forgive his first year because, okay, it's his first time. Bill O'Brien screwed everything up. Jack Easterby screwed everything up. Yada yada yada. Forgive. But last year we saw Justin Britt at camp, and he was horrendous. And the only thing that Nick did was, let's sign Scott Quessenberry as a backup and use that guy. And Scott Quessenberry was the worst O-lineman in the league last year, ranked the worst. What did he do this year? Sign him back to the squad. Yes, let's sign the worst lineman in the squad when you predict that you are going to get a rookie quarterback. What? And then you know that Kenyon Green is going to get hurt, and then you do nothing. What happened last year? Well, they saw what happened in the interior line. They blitzed us, and they blitzed the interior. And they blitzed the interior because it was the weakest point. Kenyon Green was terrible, and Scott Quessenberry was terrible. You had terrible and terrible right next to each other. What the fuck? Why didn't you make any moves now?
You also had Ken, who was a liability at the pass protection, but now
great. But he addressed that. So I'm not even. I'm not. Listen. I think what he did with Shaq Mason was awesome, but I think that also had to do because some Patriots contract is like, I got the contact over here and I can do that, but he did not give a crap what's going on the interior on the left hand side. So I do have to say, this is on Caserio. This is not just saying, you can't blame someone because injuries happen. No, you plan for this. This is football. This is where, and you are giving notice. And injuries happen, you're like, oh shit, I got to make something happen now. But you were given 4+ months and you did nothing. This is definitely on Caserio, and someone has to address that. There is no way that he should be able to just say, I thought we had it with Kenyon Green, knowing that he didn't. So yes, I'm very angry about that.
Hold on, let me check with Maury Povich and the lie detector. And Maury says, VT is telling the truth. There is no way to excuse. And look, I think that Nick Caserio overall has done a pretty decent job. Look, getting the Texans out of what was the worst situation in NFL history. No draft picks, no players, no salary. I mean, the salary cap was an abject disaster. He had to dig out of a deeper hole than has ever been dug out of before. But there is no way to justify knowing that your starting left guard needed shoulder surgery in May and thinking, we can wait. You know what? It's not a big deal. All right, you know what? Let me get some insurance. I don't need some insurance. I mean, he's like, hey, we don't need to get any insurance on that Steven Strasburg contract, right? Yeah, we don't need to get any insurance on the fact our left tackle's shoulder is about to explode. Could have got a guy in May. Could have got a guy in June. Could have got a guy in July. Waits until final cuts in August to see, all right, who on the scrap heap, what undrafted rookie free agent, what practice squatter can I get to replace my 15th overall pick? That is franchise malpractice. I'm sorry. For all the good things that Nick Caserio has done, that is the absolute whopper WTF. Should have got smacked upside the head by Gibbs at least 5 times. What the hell were you thinking moment? And there's no other way to explain it.
Right. And especially, you trade up to get Green when you could have got Linderbaum a couple picks later.
We traded down, but
traded down. That's what I meant. Traded down, right. But I mean, yeah, it seems like he's dropping the ball pretty quickly. I have to agree with BT and Patrick on this one. Crenshaw, bro, speak to me. I hope we got the spicy Cheetos.
It's really nothing to say. All I can say is, do y'all prefer Tytus on the left side or the right side? Because he keep playing ring around the rosy. And Patrick, just give me your overall perspective on Nick. Give me a grade out of 100 you think he's done so far. I know you just explained what he did, what he had to overcome. Because it's a lot of people that really think he's done a great job. And I'm not one of those people, so I want to hear from your perspective on Nick Caserio.
I think what he did to fix the salary cap was one of the best jobs that anybody's ever done with the salary cap. The Texans salary cap was an abject disaster. And there's no quick fix to when you got a guy handing out, big contracts like candy to all these guys who basically can't play. You had to figure that out. You didn't have any draft picks, right? So you had to navigate not having picks, not having any players, not having any cap. I think he's done a good job on that. I think what he did with Deshaun Watson was about as good a deal as they could have done. You went through, he showed a lot of patience. He did not let the situation overwhelm him. He did not let Watson nor his agent, and I happen to have a lot of respect for his agent because I think David Mugello is the best in the business. But his job in that particular case was to force the Texans to give his client what he wanted. And he didn't capitulate to that. He waited till it was done on his terms, and he got a ton of draft capital that they desperately needed and didn't have previously for a player that they couldn't keep. He didn't want to be here, and then he became more toxic than they could ever possibly have. And he got 3 1s. That's a hell of a job for a toxic player. You got 3 1s. I think he did a great job on that. I think he's done a nice job by getting veteran players who are quality players on short-term deals. Getting Jerry Hughes last year, that was a good deal. Getting Denzel Perryman was a good deal. Jimmy Ward, that was a good deal. Sheldon Rankins, that's a great deal. He has done some things that are very good. But this one's a whopper in the other direction. I would tell you that I think I would grade him between a B and a B minus. Because I think overwhelmingly he's done more positive than negative, but sometimes the negatives are head scratchers that there's just no way to explain what the hell was going on there. And I think that's kind of this Kenyon Green issue here is there's no way any of this made a lick of sense. So why did a guy generally regarded as the smartest guy in the room all the time put his head straight up his butt on this one? So I think that somewhere between a B and a B minus is probably fair. Overall, good job. Occasionally, WTF.
Okay.
I think you're being overly generous, honestly, in my opinion. I mean, I agree with you on the Deshaun Watson stuff. I think that the reports were saying that Jack Easterby and Cal wanted him to give up Watson for pennies on the dollar. This was before the grand jury decided not to indict, and they wanted to just get rid of Watson, get rid of the bad PR, and just get rid of him for about a first-round pick. And apparently that was supposed to go to the Dolphins if they would have taken him for just that, and it wasn't 3 first-round picks. Nick Caserio held his own and said, I want to get what I want to get, and they let him do it. You got 3 first-round picks and more. Props to him. I think that was the best thing he's done since he has been GM here. However, I have to disagree with you on the cap space stuff because of the $75 million that was in dead cap, $25 million was of his own doing. You had dudes like Anthony Miller that was brought on, that we traded for, that he let go a week after he scored his first touchdown here. So I mean, he has made some questionable decisions of adding dudes and getting rid of them right away, which sometimes actually doesn't sound bad, right? You're not holding on to your mistakes, but 25 of that 75 million dead cap was his fault. And the thing is, when it comes to situations like this, what do you have to do to fix dead cap situations? Don't fuck it up worse. Get rid of your highest, your biggest contracts. You cut them and wait the year or 2 years till they all bleed out and it goes to zero. It doesn't take the smartest guy in the room to decide, let me not make big, bad decisions again, and let's clear it up so we can have $100 million in cap space. So I can't give him too much credit because, in all honesty, a dude from Harvard, an intern, you don't need to be a genius, not even Harvard. Freaking let's go to another school, any school. This is not hard to do when you're trying to fix something. All they're doing is not making any mistakes and get rid of the mistakes that exist. So what did he do? Yeah, I think the Watson deal was fantastic. I think that this draft was damn pretty good. I have some questions on Scruggs. I have some questions on Henry To'oTo'o. But overall, I do like this draft. 2021 draft, the only starter left is Nico Collins. 2022 draft, well, if you think Kenyon Green is a bust, well, there you go on your first round pick. And I'm hoping to God that Stingley hits, but so far Stingley hasn't hit. So as of right now, in this moment, you have 3 studs. You've got Dameon Pierce, you've got Christian Harris, and you got Petrie, who I think is fantastic. That's who you got. You got 3 studs in 3 years. So I would give him a 5, an average 5. If I'm giving a grammatical grade, it's going to be a C. He's straight average, in my opinion.
Hey,
all right.
Just to be fair to Caserio, his biggest dead cap issues were Deshaun,
Yep,
Whitney Merciless, Zach Cunningham, Bradley Roby, Randall Cobb, Nick Martin, and Benardrick McKinney. He didn't sign any of those guys.
True. I understand those were the biggest ones. But also look at Randall Cobb issue. We had Green Bay, we had their balls, and we just let them go for peanuts. Rodgers was saying, I won't come back unless you get Randall Cobb, and we didn't hold their feet to the fire? Why not?
Because you have no leverage. If they say no, you're stuck with him not playing for you. I get what you're saying. I mean, I understand why you feel that way. Don't get me wrong. I understand why you feel that way. You have every right to feel that way. But the reality is, Randall Cobb wasn't doing anything for the Texans. So you were going to pay him to be a 4th, 5th receiver, or you can dump him off to the Packers for whatever you can get. So it made more sense to just take whatever you could get, especially for a team desperate for picks. So I understand what you're saying. Why didn't they push it? Because Texans didn't have a ton of leverage. They needed the picks as much as they needed to get rid of that money, as much as, here's the Packers saying, oh, we got to appease Aaron again. Here, all right, fine. We'll take him. Just, here, don't kill us.
Right.
All right. So he's going into year 3. Who you think done a better job between him and Rick Smith?
Rick is an interesting case because Rick almost always hit every first-round pick. But after that, and part of that wasn't necessarily his fault because the Texans had a messed up dynamic where they pretty much allowed certain coordinators to, quote, make picks. Sam Montgomery was not picked by Rick Smith, if you know what I mean. But it was Rick Smith who made the decision, basically unilaterally, to pull the trigger on Deshaun Watson. The room that day was a bunch of guys going, Here's Rick saying, hey, we can pull a deal on to get Deshaun Watson. Yay or nay? And everybody looking at him like he's got 5 heads and not saying a damn word. And he said, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm doing it. And he did. And for the first time, Rick finally asserted himself as, this is my team. Kubiak's not here to tell me what to do. Wade Phillips isn't here to tell me what to do. I'm not listening to Bill O'Brien. Everything he tells me to do with the draft is stupid anyway. He finally said, I'm going to make it my team. And he did. And it was the best thing he ever did. And it was out of the franchise at the end of the year.
And if we listened to I forget who it was, other than Wade Phillips, we wouldn't have JJ Watt. Wade Phillips and Rick Smith are the only ones that wanted JJ Watt here. And even our own fan base booed the pick. So if it wasn't for Rick Smith, we wouldn't have the legend that is known as JJ Watt. So
wouldn't have had JJ, wouldn't have had Watson.
Or Aaron Paul. I'll tell you one thing about Rick Smith too is dude could pick up some undrafted free agents like they got AJ Boye, Arian Foster. Like he knew how to pick them. So again, without Rick Smith, we wouldn't have the greatest Texan running back. So I would have to go Rick Smith at this point. But
I don't think Rick was great. but I think he's better than most people gave him credit for.
Same.
And I think that because of the organizational setup, he didn't have the type of authority a GM would normally have until he finally seized it. But by the time he seized it, like I said, he was out of the organization at the end of that year. And look, I get it. He chose his wife over the team. I would make that decision. I don't blame any man for making that decision. But I am surprised he hasn't gotten back into the league yet.
Same. I thought it was good. Some of the contracts, and like you said, the only rounds he really hit was the first round. Other than that, he didn't. It was a big miss most of the time. So
we're not even hitting the first round right now, bro.
I mean, I get it. So, well, guys, anything to ask Mr. Creighton before we leave? Before we cut it?
Yeah. Can I ask you something? I don't know if you may or may not, because I had to look some of these dudes up, but. All right, so we're talking about Broker. I did some research on him. He did look like he did great in Ole Miss, but he was a 7th round pick. What are the chances this dude can actually help us with the line over here? He played 1,016 snaps. He gave up 6 QB hits, 13 hurries, but did not give up any sacks. In preseason, he played 50 offensive snaps. He gave up just 1 pressure. Is this guy a diamond in the rough, or is he a nobody?
I think anybody who plays in the SEC West and doesn't give up a sack, probably pretty good. Like you, I'm surprised he was a 7th round pick. Like I said, if you can play really well in the SEC, I think that should trump playing really well at the Ohio Valley Conference or in the Sun Belt or wherever. Nice. But I think he's a guy probably needs to refine some technique a little bit, probably needs to get a little bit stronger. But I think there's a chance that he is a diamond in the rough type player. I think they will probably try to bring him along slow. I think he's a guy they'll work on the practice squad. They will try to build him up. And he won't be a guy that you'll see play week 1. I think he's more a guy you might see play later on in the year as they deal with other injuries and stuff. But I think that there's a chance that he could wind up being the diamond in the rough type player, a guy who they basically pick up for nothing and becomes a decent lineman.
Okay.
Kershaw, you look like you had something to say. No?
No, I have nothing to say. Well, just one thing. Patrick, what was your most famous interview that you ever had, whether it's here, Atlanta, New York? What's your most famous interview you ever had?
Well, I don't know if it's the most famous interview I ever had, but the best, most fun interview I ever had was with George Clinton. I was working at a different station. You guys might know it as the Texans flagship. And while doing the show one day, all of a sudden, I saw George Clinton walking down the hallway. And I looked at Nate and I said, I'll be back. And I walked outside, and sure enough, there's Nate's sister who reps George Clinton. And George Clinton, who was doing an interview with one of the sister stations, and I just said, hey, George, we want to come on with me for 15 minutes? And he was like, yeah, man, no problem. That was the most fun, like no prep. Just get in here, sit down, let's talk. That was a really fun interview. George Clinton is a legend. And to be able to have a guy like that, totally like unscripted, unprepared, he just happened to be in the building. Yeah, sure, I'll give you an interview. That was cool as hell. And I really appreciated him taking the time for that interview. Another interview that I did when I was in Atlanta, I got to interview Bart Starr.
Oh, wow.
Bart Starr is a man's man, right? He's not one of these like flamboyant mouth runners, but from the second you see him, he just commands respect. And on top of the fact, maybe greatest quarterback of his generation, he spoke of the game with a reverence and could explain everything, no matter how complicated, in very relatable terms. And again, another guy who didn't need to give us as much time as he did, very appreciative of the time he gave us, but very much appreciated that interview because of who he was. I was a nobody. I mean, I'm still a nobody, but I was really a nobody back then. and doing a little small show in Atlanta, and that was a really good interview. I learned a lot of things from that interview. I love interviews where you get to talk to some of the older players, and they kind of explain to you how different things were and what it was like, and that kind of storytelling through the game is something that I really appreciate.
Well, you're not a nobody to us, Patrick. Thank you for coming on.
Super nobody.
Patrick, why don't you tell everybody watching where we can find you every day and what you got cooking on social media?
You find me on ESPN 97.5. Show is called Late Hits. Right now we're on 6 o'clock, so hopefully we'll stay there for a little bit. If not, well, I'll tell you when we move on. But on ESPN 97.5, ESPN 92.5, 6 o'clock, you can get us on, as well as the ESPN975.com, ESPN 97.5 free app, twitch.tv/ESPN975, and you can find me on X, Twitter, whatever the hell we're calling it today, at P Creighton 1.
All right. And BT.
Yep, I will always call it Twitter. I'll never call it X, and I'll say that every week you ask me. It is Brown Chubby Bear. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Threads and everywhere else. You can find my articles on fanbattlesports.com. And I just want to say thank you, Patrick, for coming. You are not a nobody. You are a somebody.
My mom thinks I'm somebody. Fellas, I appreciate you inviting me on the show and giving me some time, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Crenshaw, what about you? Where we find you?
Find me at 5th Floor Crenshaw everywhere.
All right. And you can find me at A1 Day 1 Texans. Yeah, I'm not on ecstasy, so you can't find me on X. You can find me on Twitter. You can find the show everywhere, Texans Fan Battle, and you can listen to this tomorrow on every streaming platform, Apple, Spotify, whatever. You got it. Until next week, guys, we're 1 week away. We're almost there. We're right at the finish line where it's football season. Can't wait. So until then, guys, have a wonderful night. We'll see you again.
Peace.
Go Texans.
The Tennessee Titans finish line.
This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown.